Good morning, YouTube. It is 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas, and we have some leftover fence post scrap wood that we are going to turn into a bowl. And if you guys have been watching my videos for the past 6 years, you guys know I use fence posts for almost anything. But that was a project that I'm working on right now, that little box in the corner. That project's coming a little bit later. But I got some leftover pieces here and just decided, you know what, we got to do something with the scraps because I hate throwing stuff away. And I thought, you know what, let's do something that we did way back in the day, which is using pallet wood or scrap fence posts to make a cool bowl. So essentially all you have to do is you just got to get all these squares cut down into the size you want, add a copious amount of glue, don't be stingy or hope to God you don't run out of it, smear it all over, and then basically just make a sandwich out of it. And then you come over and take some clamps and you clamp them together, you wait about 24 hours and you just see what you get. So bad news about using fence post wood or scrap pallets is that the wood's just not good. I'll admit that. And we're about to find out real soon that this wood is very low quality. That's why it was only like $1.25 per fence post. But anyway, 24 hours later, we get everything, sandwiched together, and there are giant gaps in this. And yes, I know, but I have done this enough times to know that if you just work the problem, it's going to work out for you in the end. So here we are trying to make YouTube shorts over here on my phone and do everything at the same time. So got everything glued up. This is going to be the main body of the bowl here. And admittingly, I did go a little too large on this one. Probably could have done without 2 or 3 of these, but you know what? We were already here, so we're just going to see what happens. So getting this over here, having some crazy chip out initially, and then just trying to figure out what shape we're going to make. And since I typically like to do just traditional shapes, I just went with my boring cylinder, got everything cut down between the large, the medium, and the square carbide tool. This part goes relatively smooth. I had a little bit of a chip out there toward the tailstock where a piece came in and hit me in the face, but always wear your safety equipment. Safety first before everything else. So this is what it looks like after we got everything into a cylinder, and now we're just going to make the mortise so we can get this flipped over. And this part goes relatively well. The reason why I like to work with these fence posts as well is because, hint, hint, here's something to think about. The wood is super soft. It's usually pine. So if you're new to woodworking, work with fence posts. Work with whatever wood you have available. Because, you know what? At the end of the day, it is what it is. You make the best of what you got. So that's essentially what we're doing here. So I got this reversed on the chuck, and now we're just going to go ahead and shape this all down. Make sure everything is nice and even, and then we'll get to the gouging portion of the video, which is about to start right meow. So working initially with a smaller carbide tool here, and like I said earlier, the great thing about working with this type of wood is that it's basically scrap, and the chisels pretty much eat it up really quickly. So not a whole lot of problems here. You just get to a nice depth that you like, and then you just start working down the material until you get to a depth that you're comfortable with. And like I said earlier in the video, I probably could have gone a little bit different size with this, but I just ended up using what I had. And then once I was turning it over, I just realized how horrible this wood actually is. Even with the sanding that I'm going to do a little bit later, it's really not that pretty of wood, but we'll get to that part ever. This is probably the ugliest bowl that I've ever made. And you know what? It was still fun to do because, it's always fun to build stuff that you like to build, even though I don't think this bowl particularly turns out too well. But we're here just working off the edges and then just getting to a nice depth, switching up the carbide tools, obviously, and then we'll start working on the lid. So here we are kind of toward the end, and I'm just working down the material a little bit. I got my head all the way down toward the tailstock, trying to look inside and get everything done, but it turns out pretty good. That's why you don't be stingy with your glue, is so that everything stays together when you're doing this. That's a pretty helpful point there. So if you're going to do this, make sure to use a lot of glue and make sure your pieces are actually formed the way they need to. So once we got the actual bowl done, now we start working on the lid. And this is really where I realized that I might have used too many pallets, but it's better to use too many pallets or too many fence posts and glue them up than not enough. Because once I got this into a round shape, I realized this is probably the size of the bowl that it should have been. But I'm like, okay, not a problem. We'll figure something out. So once I got this part done here, we're going to make another mortise, and then we'll flip it over onto the other side. And here I am starting and stopping, just trying to gauge the fit of it. And then boom, got a nice good fit, making a mortise, and then we'll flip it over, and then we'll get to the shape of the actual bowl that we want here in just a second. But I think from start to finish, once I got it onto the lathe, this whole project might have took like less than an hour, maybe an hour total. With the sanding and everything. But once I got this flipped over on the lathe, I started working down as much material as possible. If you guys watched last week's video, I made like a cool dome shape with the epoxy, and I just decided to do the same thing with this one as well. Kind of just make a dome out of it instead of just taking off all that material. Just have something to show for it. Make a cool little mound with it, essentially, and then just switching up the carbide tools just a little bit. So once I did that, now I just try to size up the lip of it so that it kind of matches the lid. And that didn't take any time at all, and this is kind of what it looks like with all of it together. And then I just took the lid and essentially did the same thing, but you can just see how horrible this wood is. It's really not good material. It's good material to practice, so if you're a beginner or just getting into woodworking, or you're just an amateur like me, fence post will work. So getting those final touches in here, and then we start my favorite part, which is sanding. And the great thing about sanding this crappy wood is that you don't have to spend a lot of time doing it. You go from 50 grit, 80 grit to 120. We really didn't spend a whole lot of time sanding because of what we're about to do here in just a second. But this is essentially what it looked like once the sanding was completed. Probably could have done a little bit better job, but for what I'm going to do with it, I decided that spending more time sanding wasn't worth it. You can see just all the shavings and everything that are torn off, and everything's kind of scattered around, so that takes a while. It takes more time to clean up the workshop than it does actually to make the bowl, but you can kind of see here. And then we torch the wood. Yes, you guys have probably seen me do this technique hundreds of times, but this is probably my favorite thing to do to crappy wood. I think just burn it, because it gives it a little bit more character. If you're not going to stain it, burn it. It kind of covers up those little imperfections and how it kind of looks kind of odd, but we just decided to do that, and then you can kind of see those little sparkles and everything that are in it. But overall, this is what it looks like. I put some lacquer on it, put a couple of layers on there, let it rest for about 30 minutes, and then this is the finished product. This is the ugliest bowl I've ever made. I will admit it looks ugly, but it's a little bit of a throwback to our beginnings on the channel. So hope you guys liked it, hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Alright, peace. Alright, so project is done, and this disgusting, ugly looking bowl is finished. I don't know what to call it exactly, but it's an ugly pellet bowl for sure. I think that's probably what I'm going to name and title this video. But I put some lacquer on it. You guys didn't see that, but obviously we did our classic burning, and it looks a lot better than if I just would have left it all by itself. But man, that pellet wood was really just kind of janky and just kind of really just gross, obviously. But anyway, quick project. We haven't done something like this in a little bit, so wanted to use that cool dome shape as well. But anyway, hope you guys liked it. Hope you got something out of it. Really fun little easy project. You guys are watching this on Sunday. Today is actually Wednesday, so I'm uploading this because I will be flying home from a trip, and more to follow on that. But anyway, hope you guys liked it. Hope you got something out of it as always. Hope everybody's doing good. It's actually cooling down here in Texas, which is really helping working in the shop. But I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, peace.